never seen schools like these. I'll get on the fast on the best footballer. Hold up, look at my tricks. Look, 1, 2, 1, go. What a ball.
You will be in a pass when these rubbish will be
Go West, life in Devon and Cornwall coming up at 8 o'clock tonight. But right now, Krishnan, Guru-Murthy and Jackie Long with today's Channel 4 News.
To the irritation of his own northern MPs, Boris Johnson is a no-show in Wakefield and Doncaster and heads to Kiev to give President Zelensky a book about the Queen. Good evening. Less than a week before the Wakefield by-election, Boris Johnson was expected on the campaign trail today and at a conference of northern Tory MPs who want tax cuts and the levelling up promised in 2019. But they were stood up and left disappointed as the PM went to Ukraine instead to stand with President Zelensky. Some of those disappointed said it showed contempt for the North. But with opinion polls spelling doom for Tories and dozens of red wall seats, is it any surprise Ukraine seems like a less hostile environment for Boris Johnson?
Also tonight, the Home Secretary says the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange can be extradited to the US. The Home Office say there were no grounds to oppose the extradition. His supporters say it sends a chilling message to journalists. Grounded, Gatwick Airport is to cut flights over the summer because of staff shortages. It insists it will give passengers a more reliable experience. But will the passengers forced to stay put see it that way? Paying the price as the government say they won't include transgender people in a ban on conversion therapy. One woman who's lived through it tells us she's afraid of the consequences.
Unless you include trans issues, you, in my view, likely be condemning some people to take their own lives.
And I'm here in Broadstairs in Kent on the UK's hottest day of the year so far, finding out what people here think of the early taste of summer. And of course, I'll have a full weather forecast at the end of the programme.
Well, the offer from Boris Johnson to President Zelensky was for the British military to train thousands more Ukrainian troops in unspecified third countries. A day after EU leaders were in Kiev offering solidarity, Boris Johnson was largely doing the same. Ukraine's leader clearly appreciated the visit, but it meant he couldn't appear before Conservative MPs in Doncaster. From there, Serena Barker-Singh reports. Well, earlier I spoke to the Conservative MP Jake Berry, chair of the Northern Research Group, that collection of red wall Tory MPs, and I asked him whether Conservative MPs were disappointed the Prime Minister didn't campaign in Wakefield.
Now, as temperatures have been rising this month, so too has the number of people attempting to cross the channel in small boats. Over 1,000 have made the perilous journey this week alone, with 2022 set to be a record year. Anya Popp has been speaking to those currently camped out around Calais about whether the government's plan to send them to Rwanda is any deterrent, and she joins us live.
Anya Popp reporting. Now, the Home Secretary has approved the extradition of the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, to the United States. Mr. Assange's legal team have said they will challenge Priti Patel's decision and have 2 weeks to mount an appeal. The United States has sought to prosecute him for more than a decade after he published huge numbers of leaked military secrets, including alleged war crimes and atrocities in Iraq and Afghanistan. His wife, Stella, will be speaking to us in a moment, but first, Jane Dodge reports. And Julian Assange's wife, Stella, is with me here in the studio. What is his state of mind? What is his health? Because it has been suggested that if he were to be extradited, he could take his own life. Stella Assange, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jackie.
Gatwick Airport has announced it is cutting flights right in the middle of the summer holiday season as it continues to struggle with a staffing crisis. Normally, around 900 flights leave the airport each day during peak season, but this July that will be cut to 825 and in August to 850. Meanwhile, an investigation has been launched into the death of a disabled plane passenger who reportedly fell after getting off an EasyJet flight on Wednesday without a helper at Gatwick. The airport has said that staff shortages did not contribute to the tragedy. Aisha Tal reports.
Now, England and Wales have been basking in the sunshine today on what's been the hottest day of the year so far. Our weather presenter Liam Dutton joins us now from Broadstairs in Kent. Liam. Thanks, Liam. Well, we may be enjoying the sun here in the UK, but the climate crisis is, of course, turning the heat up across the world, and it can be deadly. This year has already seen heat records repeatedly broken. Climate scientists say that by the end of this decade, almost all countries will experience extreme hot weather every other year. In India, they experienced the hottest March ever, and temperatures there have exceeded a record-breaking 49 degrees. Staying alive in that heat without pumping more fossil fuels into the atmosphere is one of the biggest challenges facing our futures. Our reporter Shreya Banerjee has this.
COVID infections are rising once again across the UK. Total infections are now back at the levels seen last May, though still well down on the peak of the pandemic. New types of Omicron variants seem to be driving the resurgence of the virus. Across the UK, 1.4 million private households are estimated to have had the virus last week. That's an increase of more than 40% on the previous week. The disease is most prevalent in Scotland, where 1 in 30 have COVID. In Northern Ireland and Wales, the rate is 1 in 45. England has a rate of 1 in 50. England reported just over 5,000 people in hospital with COVID yesterday, up by nearly a quarter on the previous week. Well, we've spoken to Devi Sridhar throughout the pandemic. She is the Professor of Global Public Health at the University of Edinburgh and joins us now. Professor Sridhar, we haven't spoken to you for ages, and no offence, we've taken that as a good thing. Is it bad news that you're back? This sheer rise in the number of cases going up? Professor Devi Sridhar, very nice to talk to you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, a trans woman who survived so-called conversion therapy has told this programme that people will take their own lives as a result of the government's decision to exclude transgender people in their plan to ban the controversial practice. The decision has caused widespread condemnation from LGBTQ plus groups and human rights charities. The government were forced to cancel their global conference on LGBTQ rights after more than 100 groups pulled out in protest. The Equalities Office say it's a complex issue and insist they want to be more careful with the legislation involving trans people. Our correspondent Minnie Stevenson has Carolyn's story. Minnie Stevenson reporting there. After the break, I ask England's first women's health ambassador whether trans women are included in her remit, plus why she wants to change the way we think about the menopause, period pains and birth control. Welcome back. Now, improving the health of all women is the aim of England's first women's health ambassador. Dame Leslie Regan says too often girls and women have to fight too hard to get the treatment they need. But it is a huge in-tray, everything from periods to the menopause and the maternity scandals, which have seen women lose their lives or their babies. I met Dame Leslie earlier and began by asking her why we need a women's health ambassador. Dame Leslie Regan talking to me earlier. That's all we have time for this evening. We're back at 6:30 tomorrow.
Until then, from all of us, that's Channel 4 News. Have a very good evening.
Good evening.
Steel cordless garden power tools, proud sponsors of Channel 4 Weather.